As part of being a parent or a grandparent or even relatives or even people in the church, part of their responsibility is help to teach and train kids. Now, this is especially true for parents. It's their job to teach them, to train them, to give them a strong spiritual base, to help them to get a good education. There's all different types of aspects of teaching and training. And one of the ways that we have to look at is sharing our experiences. You see, it's one thing to just tell kids this is what you're supposed to do, this is what you're not supposed to do, and all these things, and punish them for not listening or being rebellious or whatever. But it's another thing to use your life as an example to them. And here in Psalm 78, verses 5 through 8, first of all, it tells, God is telling the nation of Israel that he says, I'm commanding our fathers, he says, to teach their children. It's our job to teach our children. Yes, this is in the Old Testament, but you'll see that even in the New Testament, this is our job. And saying, so the future generation, children yet to be born, we're talking about this teaching and training going more than one generation. As we teach our children, then they can teach their children. And the thing is, they need to know. They need to know. We're supposed, it says, rise up and tell our children. They're supposed to rise up and tell their children. This is supposed to be something passed down, passed down, passed down. So that they might put their confidence in God and not forget God's works, but keep his commands. You see, probably the most important thing that we can teach our children first is that they can go to heaven and show them in God's word and show them how they can get there. Share the gospel with them, but also how to live the Christian life. It says so they can put their confidence in God. Life is rough. Life has hard times. Hopefully we've learned that we need to trust God and put confidence in him and to keep his commands. But then verse 8 goes on and says, then they would not be like their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation whose heart was not loyal and whose spirit was not faithful to God. Remember, the nation of Israel was so unfaithful. So often they were rebellious. They directly went against God's commands. And so this is what he's telling them here is, you need to try to help your children not make these same mistakes, not to do the same things that you did. Now, I know that this may be hard. Like I said, it's not just about teaching them you do this and you don't do that. But it has a lot more meaning and a lot more impact if you're willing to humble yourselves before your children and say, I made a mistake. I made these mistakes. I didn't listen to what God was telling me. I did this wrong. And this is what happened. This is what happened because I was rebellious, I didn't listen, and I didn't do what I was supposed to do. And as you share that, you have to share also then, what did God do? First of all, you had struggles and stuff because of it, but then God brought you out of it. When you confessed your sin, when you went before God, when you put your faith and trust back in him, he brought you out of these problems. And he said, and you can share with them, we're where we are today. We have what we have today because God was faithful. And so this is why it's so important that we're willing to share our lives, the good and the bad, both, with our children, with our grandchildren. And like I said, even aunts and uncles, even church families, can share these things so that our kids, the future generations, don't make the same mistakes we did. So they don't have to have the same struggles and problems that we did. We need to be willing to do what's hard, humble ourselves before our kids. They can see that we're not perfect, that we made mistakes, and that's okay. But we need to change how we live. How did God change us? And so I would just encourage you today, if you have any influence over children in any way, to think about this. If this was encouraging to you or helpful in any way, please like, share, and subscribe, and may God always bless you.